My parents called me laughing to thank me for the honeymoon surprise. The surprise? They had just drained my $380,000 savings account to send my sister on a 3-month luxury tour of Europe. They told me it was a family investment in happiness. But they made one fatal mistake. They forgot I was the one secretly paying for their retirement fund. Before I tell you how this betrayal ends, let me know in the comments where you are watching from. And if you've ever been the responsible child who gets taken for granted, hit that like and subscribe button. You are going to want to see this. My name is Sarah Chen, and I'm 31 years old. My life runs on spreadsheets, quarterly reports, and the quiet satisfaction of building something real. As a senior financial analyst for a major investment firm in San Francisco, my days are structured by market analysis, client portfolios, and the clean logic of numbers that never lie. My penthouse apartment in Soma was my sanctuary. Every modern piece of furniture, every minimalist decoration was a testament to the discipline and sacrifice that got me here, a barrier against the chaos of my family, the chaos that was currently exploding my phone during the most important presentation of my career. I was leading a quarterly review with our biggest client, Meridian Capital, a tech billionaire whose $200 million portfolio I personally managed. The conference room was filled with C-level executives. My screen was displaying complex algorithmic trading strategies, and my voice was calm and authoritative as I walked them through projections that could make or break my partnership track. And my phone, set to silent, was lighting up like a Christmas tree on the table beside my laptop. The screen illuminated, "Mom." I ignored it, maintaining eye contact with David Meridian himself. Business development shows a 23% uptick in Q3. I continued smoothly, gesturing to the holographic display. Based on our predictive modeling. Dad. The screen flashed again. I shifted my weight slightly, trying to focus. The algorithmic patterns suggest optimal rebalancing toward emerging markets. Mom again. It was now the 5th missed call in 10 minutes. David Meridian himself, the man whose net worth exceeded some small countries, paused mid-question. "Ms. Chen," he said, his steel-gray eyes narrowing slightly. "You seem to have some urgent communications coming in. Is there a situation we should be aware of?" My face flushed hot. In this room, with these people, an interruption like this could end careers. My apologies, Mr. Meridian. Just a family matter that I'll address immediately after our session. Please, allow me one moment to ensure there's no emergency. I muted my mic and camera, grabbed my phone with trembling hands, and stepped into the glass-walled hallway overlooking the San Francisco Bay. The fog was rolling in, gray and ominous. My voice was a controlled, furious whisper. "Mom, I am managing a $200 million portfolio review. David Meridian is in that room. This better be a matter of life and death." The sound that came back wasn't panic. It wasn't an emergency. It was pure, unbridled celebration. Loud, giddy laughter underscored by what sounded like champagne glasses clinking, party music, and multiple voices cheering in the background. "Sarah, sweetheart, oh my God, you are never going to believe what we just pulled off." It was my mother, Linda Chen. She sounded absolutely euphoric, like she'd just won the lottery. Your sister Jessica, our beautiful 28-year-old baby, screamed into the phone from what sounded like an airport terminal. "We did it, Sar. We actually did it. The grand European adventure is happening. 3 months of pure luxury. Can you even believe it?" I pinched the bridge of my nose, feeling a migraine building behind my eyes. My patience was evaporating like morning fog. Great. Absolutely wonderful. I'm thrilled for her. I have to return to my meeting now. No, wait! Mom got back on the line, and her voice was dripping with that particular brand of manic excitement that always preceded disaster. "That's not even the best part, sweetie. This is all happening because of you, because of your incredible generosity. Thank you. You're the most amazing sister in the world." A cold, sick feeling started spreading through my stomach like ice water. Generosity? Thanks for what? I didn't approve any transfer. "What exactly are you talking about, Mom?" My mother let out that light, airy, dismissive laugh she always used when she thought I was being unnecessarily dramatic or slow to understand something obvious. "Oh, don't be silly, Sarah. Don't act like you don't know. I accessed the family emergency fund, sweetie, our joint savings account. All $380,000 of it. Can you believe we saved so much? It's exactly enough for Jessica's dream honeymoon. 3 months touring Europe, first-class flights, 5-star hotels, private tours, designer shopping, the works. She deserves nothing but the absolute best. The hallway started to spin. The fog outside seemed to be creeping through the glass, clouding my vision. I leaned against the cold wall, my hand shaking so violently I nearly dropped the phone. My savings account. The account I'd been building for 7 years. My life's work. "Mom?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "What are you talking about? You can't just—" "My name is the primary on that account. You can't access my personal savings." My mother's voice. The voice of a 58-year-old former Wells Fargo branch manager who knew every banking regulation and loophole by heart, suddenly lost all its bubbliness. It turned sharp, cold, and condescending, like she was explaining basic arithmetic to a child. "Oh no, honey. You must be confused. Clearly confused. Our names are both on that account, remember? Joint ownership with full rights of survivorship. You set it up that way yourself 7 years ago. Legally, Sarah, it was always our family emergency fund, our shared family asset. And this absolutely qualifies as an emergency. Jessica just got married. She deserves the honeymoon of her dreams. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for her happiness." I couldn't breathe. The $380,000 I had scraped together over 7 years of 80-hour work weeks. Every Christmas bonus, every performance incentive, every dollar I'd saved by eating ramen and living in studio apartments while building my career. 7 years of compound interest, careful investments, and meticulous planning. "Where am I supposed to get my house down payment?" I whispered, my voice breaking. That money was for my future, for my life. Anyway, she continued as if I hadn't spoken, as if my entire financial future hadn't just been obliterated. "Jessica and Marcus are already at SFO, first-class tickets to Paris. They're staying at the George Five tonight, then the Ritz in London, then that incredible place in Switzerland you always see in the movies. We're actually at the airport right now, throwing them the most amazing bon voyage party. Everyone from the country club is here. Mrs. Patterson brought champagne. We have to go, baby." The boarding announcement just started. "Talk later. Love you so much." A click. The line went dead. I stood there frozen in that corporate hallway, in my $2,000 Armani suit, holding my phone like it was a bomb that had just detonated. Through the glass wall, I could see David Meridian and his team waiting, their faces beginning to show impatience. On my laptop screen visible through the conference room door, I could see the complex financial projections I'd spent weeks preparing, still glowing on the display. The irony was suffocating. I was in charge of managing hundreds of millions of dollars for the wealthiest people in Silicon Valley, and my own family had just stolen everything I'd worked for to fund a vacation. My shock was crystallizing into something cold, sharp, and absolutely murderous. They had finally done it. They had crossed the one line I never thought they'd cross. They had stolen my future to pay for her pleasure. The war had just begun. I walked back into the conference room. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me expectantly. I looked at David Meridian, at his senior partners, at the people who controlled more money than most countries. "I apologize," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "There's been a family emergency. I need to reschedule this presentation. Ms. Chen," David said slowly, his voice carrying a warning. "This is a quarterly review for a $200 million portfolio. We've flown people in from New York for this meeting." "I understand completely," I said, already packing up my laptop. "There's been a significant financial crime committed against me personally, and I need to address it immediately. I'll have my assistant reschedule for next week." I walked out. I didn't explain further. I didn't apologize again. I just left them sitting there and walked straight to the elevator. My apartment felt like a crime scene when I got home. Every piece of carefully chosen furniture, every artwork I'd saved for, every expensive appliance I'd justified as an investment in my future success. It was all built on what I thought was the solid foundation of $380,000 in savings. Money that was now funding champagne toasts in first-class airline lounges halfway around the world. I sat on my Italian leather couch, the one I'd saved 8 months to buy, and tried to understand how the trap had been set. It didn't take long to trace it back to its origins. 7 years ago, I was 24, fresh out of Stanford Business School with my MBA and a mountain of student debt. I'd just started my position as a junior analyst at Goldman Sachs, making $125,000 a year, which felt like all the money in the universe after years of subsisting on graduate school stipends and campus cafeteria food. I was living in a 400-square-foot studio apartment in the Mission, determined to save every possible penny to build real wealth. I opened a high-yield investment account with Schwab, ready to start my journey toward financial independence. My plan was simple but aggressive: save 60% of my income, invest systematically, and build a portfolio that would let me buy property within 5 years. That's when my father called. Marcus Chen, my gentle, perpetually worried father, who worked as a mid-level accountant for a medical supply company. He'd spent my entire childhood fretting about money, about retirement, about having enough. The 2008 financial crisis had wiped out almost half of their retirement savings, and at 57, he was in full panic mode about their future. "Sarah, sweetheart," he'd said in that quiet, concerned tone he used when he was about to ask for something he was embarrassed about. "Your mother and I have been thinking. You're so brilliant with money, so much more sophisticated than we could ever be. We were wondering, what if we created some kind of family emergency fund, a joint account where you could help us learn about investing?" It had seemed not just reasonable, but smart, progressive even. My parents were treating me like an equal, recognizing my financial acumen and asking for guidance. The joint account would let me teach them about compound interest and smart investing, while building a larger pool of capital that could benefit everyone. What a brilliant idea, I'd thought. This was my family evolving, acknowledging my expertise, inviting me into their financial planning as an adult partner. I transferred my initial $15,000 in savings to open the joint account. Then, every month, like clockwork, I deposited my savings, $4,000, $5,000, sometimes $8,000 when quarterly bonuses came in, for 84 straight months. 7 full years of disciplined, systematic saving. They never contributed a single dollar. Not once. Not ever. Every deposit was mine. Every dollar was my sacrifice, my discipline, my delayed gratification. But the account statements showed both our names, and over the years, they had somehow convinced themselves it was shared money, family money, their money. I pulled out my laptop and logged into the account for the first time in months. I didn't need to check it regularly because I knew exactly what was there. I was the only one making deposits. The current balance should have been $383,247. The current balance was $0. Recent transactions showed a single withdrawal dated yesterday, $380,000. Transfer to Jessica Chen Rodriguez, European Adventure Fund. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. They hadn't just taken my money. They had cleaned me out completely and labeled it a gift to my sister. They had treated my life savings like their personal slush fund. Now, it all made perfect, sickening sense. This was never about teaching them to invest. This was never about family financial planning. This was about access. They needed a way to accumulate capital for the real daughter, the one who mattered, the one who deserved beautiful things. Jessica, who got a brand new BMW X5 for her 21st birthday, while I bought my own used Honda Civic with my internship money. Jessica, who had her entire college tuition and living expenses paid while I graduated with $60,000 in student loans. Jessica, who lived rent-free in their converted guest house while building her lifestyle blogging business, which really meant they subsidized her entire existence while she posted photos of acai bowls and sunset yoga poses. I remembered confronting them about the obvious favoritism 3 years ago, after Jessica's elaborate destination wedding in Napa that cost them $80,000. Why does she get everything handed to her while I have to fight for every opportunity? I'd demanded. My mother had given me that patient, condescending smile I'd grown to hate. Because Jessica is delicate, Sarah. She's creative, artistic, sensitive. She experiences the world more deeply than most people. She needs our protection and support to flourish. You're different. You're strong, capable, independent. You don't need our help the way she does. You're a survivor. She was right about one thing. I am strong. But they had mistaken my strength for an unlimited bank account. They thought I was their family ATM. They thought I would just absorb this theft and keep smiling. They thought wrong. I grabbed my car keys and headed for the door. I wasn't going to call a lawyer yet. I wasn't going to file police reports. I was going to collect what was owed to me. The drive down 101 to Palo Alto was a blur of rage and calculation. I don't remember changing lanes. I don't remember stopping for tolls. I just remember my hands gripping the steering wheel of my Honda Civic so hard my knuckles were white, thinking about every dollar I'd transferred into that account, while they spent their own income on luxury cars and country club memberships. Their house was a Spanish colonial masterpiece, sitting on 2 manicured acres in one of Palo Alto's most exclusive neighborhoods. The circular driveway was paved with imported Italian stone. The lawn looked like it belonged on a golf course. It was the house my mother had dreamed of since I was a child, the symbol that the Chen family had achieved the American dream, the house that screamed success and respectability to all their Silicon Valley friends. I didn't knock. I didn't ring the doorbell. I used my emergency key and burst through the massive oak front door. "Where are they?" I screamed. The words echoed through the vaulted ceilings and marble foyer. My father Marcus was exactly where I knew he would be. In his study, sitting in his hand-tooled leather chair, NPR playing softly on his expensive speakers, reading the Wall Street Journal with his afternoon tea. The picture of suburban tranquility. He looked up, annoyed by the intrusion. "Sarah, what on earth?" he said, not moving from his chair. "Close the door. You're letting the air conditioning out and PG&E is expensive enough as it is. You emptied my account." I screamed, the words tearing from my throat. "You stole my money." My father sighed, that deep, weary sigh he always used when I was being difficult or dramatic or unreasonable. He carefully folded his newspaper and set it aside, but he didn't turn off the radio. He couldn't even give me his full attention for this conversation. "Sarah," he said in that maddeningly calm tone, "lower your voice. Don't come into this house acting hysterical. We did what was best for the family, what was right." Right? I was shaking, literally trembling with rage. That was my life savings. 7 years of my salary. Every bonus. Every sacrifice. How could you just give it away like it was nothing? "We didn't give it away," he said, his voice growing sharp with irritation. "We invested it in your sister's happiness and future. Do you understand what marriage means, Sarah? This honeymoon isn't just a vacation. It's the foundation of Jessica and Marcus's entire relationship. It's setting them up for a lifetime of beautiful memories together. She deserves to start her marriage with joy, not financial stress." "And what about my foundation?" I shot back. "What about my future? What about my memories? I'm 31 years old, and you just stole my entire life savings." "You're 31 years old," he said dismissively, finally standing up from his chair. "You make excellent money at that investment firm. You have your whole career ahead of you. You'll rebuild your savings. You always land on your feet, Sarah. You're the capable one, remember?" That was it. That was my reward for being responsible. My punishment for being successful. "I'm calling my lawyer," I said, my voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "I'm calling my lawyer right now, and I'm suing you both for theft." "Theft?" The voice came from the curved staircase. My mother, Linda. She was wearing an elegant cream-colored silk blouse and tailored slacks, her hair and makeup perfect as always. She looked like she'd just stepped out of a society luncheon. She slowly descended the stairs, one manicured hand gliding along the wrought iron banister, like a queen descending to address the peasants. "Theft," she repeated, tasting the word with amusement. She actually smiled. "That's what you said, Sarah? You're going to sue your parents? The people who sacrificed everything to give you opportunities? The people who put you through Stanford? You sacrificed nothing for me," I shot back. "I paid my own way through business school. I've been funding my own life since I was 22. She reached the bottom of the stairs and walked directly toward me, her heels clicking authoritatively on the imported marble floor. Her presence filled the space like expensive perfume. "Go ahead, honey," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Call your little lawyer. Spend whatever money you have left on legal fees. He's going to look at the paperwork and tell you exactly what I'm telling you right now. Joint account ownership with full rights of survivorship. Both names on every single document, every signature line. I have transaction records, I protested, my voice rising desperately. 7 years of bank statements. Every deposit came from my personal accounts. I can prove every dollar was mine. She walked past me into the living room and picked up a crystal glass from the coffee table, examining it like it was the most interesting thing in the world. "Oh, sweetie," she said, not even looking at me. "You're so naive sometimes. It's actually endearing. Any money you contributed was a gift, a voluntary contribution, a generous daughter helping her family build financial security." She set the glass down and finally turned to face me. "I was a branch manager at Wells Fargo for 15 years, Sarah. I was responsible for business accounts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I know exactly how joint accounts work. I know the law. I wrote policies that banks still use today." She stepped closer, and I could smell her expensive perfume, see the satisfaction in her eyes. "You were making voluntary deposits into a shared family asset. You were building a nest egg for all of us. And now that nest egg is being used for exactly what family assets should be used for: family happiness." I stood there speechless. This wasn't impulsive. This wasn't a desperate decision. This was strategic, calculated, and completely legal. They had been planning this for 7 years, fattening me up like a pig for slaughter. My mother glanced at her diamond-encrusted Rolex. "You've had your little tantrum. Now I suggest you go home, take a nice bath, and think about how wonderful it is that your sister is going to have the most incredible honeymoon of her life. They're posting the most amazing photos from the first-class lounge right now." She pulled out her phone and showed me Jessica's Instagram story. It was a video of Jessica and her new husband Marcus spinning around in what looked like a luxury airline lounge, holding champagne glasses and laughing. The caption read, "Living our best life thanks to the most amazing family ever. First stop, Paris. Blessed European adventure, first-class life." "Look at that joy," my mother said, her voice softening with genuine warmth. "Look at how happy she is. This is what it means to be family, Sarah. This is what love looks like." The next morning, I was sitting in a glass-walled conference room on the 42nd floor of a downtown San Francisco skyscraper. Across from me sat David Kim, the most ruthless family attorney in the Bay Area. I'd found him through my network at Goldman Sachs. He was the lawyer tech executives called when their divorces got ugly, and the stakes were measured in 9 figures. I had already forwarded him every document I possessed: the original account opening papers, 7 years of monthly deposit records, 84 straight months of bank statements showing systematic transfers from my personal accounts to the joint account. The paper trail was immaculate. David was staring at his monitor, scrolling through the PDFs with the focused intensity of a surgeon. He was a small, sharp man in an $8,000 suit who looked like he could dismantle a Fortune 500 company before lunch. He let out a long, slow breath and leaned back in his leather chair. "Sarah," he said, and his voice was flat, professional, and completely devoid of hope. "They got you. They got you perfectly." "What are you talking about?" I demanded, leaning forward. "I have records. I have proof. Every payment is documented. It's my money." David shook his head slowly, like a doctor delivering a terminal diagnosis. "It doesn't matter what you paid, Sarah. It doesn't matter where the money came from. It matters what you signed 7 years ago, and what you signed was a joint account agreement with equal access rights. But the deposits were mine," I insisted. "Every single dollar. I have bank records proving it. Legally, it's irrelevant," he said gently. "Joint ownership means joint ownership. They can argue the deposits were gifts, family contributions, shared investments in family security. Any judge will see this as a family dispute, not criminal theft." He pulled out a thick legal brief and slid it across the mahogany table. "We can absolutely file a lawsuit. I can make their lives miserable for 3 years. But Sarah, it's going to cost you $150,000 in legal fees minimum, and at the end of it all, you'll probably lose." Family court judges hate these cases. They see them as rich people fighting over money while real families are struggling to survive. As if summoned by cosmic irony, my phone buzzed on the conference table. A new email notification lit up the screen. The subject line made my stomach clench. European Adventure Day. 3. Living our absolute best life. I opened it despite myself. It was Jessica's latest blog post, complete with professional photography of her and Marcus at a Michelin-starred restaurant in Paris. The photos showed them laughing over champagne and what looked like a $300 tasting menu. The caption read, "Grateful doesn't even begin to describe how we're feeling. Thanks to our incredible family support system, we're living our absolute dream honeymoon. 3 months of pure European magic ahead. Next stop, the Swiss Alps. Family first. Blessed. Dreams come true. Living our best life." The post had 847 likes and dozens of comments from friends gushing about how perfect their life looked. I slid the phone across to David. He looked at the screen and cursed under his breath. "They're not even hiding it," he said. "They're flaunting it. Look at this. She's literally bragging about spending your money." I stood up, feeling completely defeated. My legs felt like water. I was a senior financial analyst who managed hundreds of millions of dollars for the wealthiest people in Silicon Valley, and I'd been outmaneuvered by my own parents. I walked out of David's office feeling like I'd been gutted. They hadn't just stolen from me. They had destroyed me using my own trust and love against me. My mother had deployed her professional banking knowledge like a weapon, and she had aimed it directly at my future. I sat in my car in the parking garage for 20 minutes, staring at Jessica's blog post. She was holding designer shopping bags from what looked like the Champs-Élysées, her face glowing with pure, uncomplicated happiness. She had no idea her fairy tale was built on the wreckage of my financial security. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mom. "Hi, sweetie. Don't forget about our family celebration dinner tomorrow at 7. I made reservations at Chez Panisse for a proper celebration. We have so much to be grateful for. Jessica called from the Louvre. She's having the time of her life. Don't be late. A celebration. They weren't just robbing me. They were expecting me to attend a party celebrating my own financial execution. They wanted me to sit there and smile while they toasted their brilliant heist with my stolen money. I showed up at Chez Panisse at exactly 7 p.m. The restaurant was the kind of place where Silicon Valley venture capitalists closed deals and tech CEOs celebrated IPOs. The kind of place where a single dinner cost more than most people spent on groceries in a month. They were already seated at a prime table with a perfect view of the Berkeley Hills, the golden California sunset painting everything in warm light. My mother, Linda, was wearing a new designer dress I'd never seen before, probably purchased to celebrate their windfall. My father, Marcus, was in his best suit, looking relaxed and satisfied. They had the demeanor of people who had just successfully executed a brilliant business strategy. I sat down in the empty chair, my entire body radiating controlled fury. "Oh, Sarah, there you are!" my mother exclaimed, beaming like she hadn't just obliterated my financial future 48 hours earlier. "You look tired, sweetheart. Has work been stressful? I hope you're not overworking yourself." The waiter materialized immediately. They knew we were high-value customers. "Can I start you with wine this evening?" "Your best bottle of champagne," I said, my voice steady as steel. "The most expensive one you have. Put it on my parents' tab. They're celebrating." My parents exchanged glances. Mom forced a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "Sarah, honey, we're already celebrating. Look at this." She pulled out her phone with the excitement of a child showing off a new toy. She'd been following Jessica's journey obsessively, screenshotting every Instagram story and saving every photo. The screen showed a video of Jessica and Marcus in what looked like their luxury suite at the George V, surrounded by rose petals and champagne bottles. Jessica was practically vibrating with joy, squealing about how perfect everything was, how this was better than any fairy tale she'd ever imagined. "Isn't she just luminous with happiness?" Mom gushed, holding the phone so I could see every detail. "Look at that smile. This is what family investment looks like, Sarah. This is how we build beautiful memories that last forever. Money is just money, but experiences like this, these are priceless." I watched the video. I watched my sister twirl around in a hotel suite that cost $2,000 per night, paid for with money I had earned working 16-hour days during earnings season. I watched her show off designer shopping bags that represented months of my salary. For the next 2 hours, I sat there and drank champagne that cost $400 per bottle. I drank as they showed me professional photos from Jessica's private tour of Versailles. I drank as they read me texts about her shopping spree on the Champs-Élysées, where she'd bought a $3,000 handbag. I drank as they planned their own trip to visit her in Italy during the second leg of her journey. Every laugh, every toast, every proud parental comment was a knife twisting deeper into the wound of my demolished future. They were celebrating the systematic theft of my life savings, as if it were the most generous gift they'd ever orchestrated. I finished my 6th glass and stood up abruptly. The restaurant spun slightly around me. I couldn't sit there anymore. I couldn't watch them celebrate my financial ruin with such obvious satisfaction. "I need to speak with you privately," I said to my mother, nodding toward the restroom. "Now." In the marble and gold restroom, my mother followed me with obvious annoyance already building in her expression. She was clearly irritated that I was interrupting their celebration. "Sarah, what is this?" she snapped before I could even speak. "You're making a scene out there. People are starting to stare. This is embarrassing." "People are staring?" I laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. "Mom, you stole $380,000 from me. My entire life savings. And you're worried about people staring?" I turned to face her fully, and this was my last chance to reach whatever tiny sliver of maternal instinct might still exist in her. "Please," I begged, and I hated how desperate I sounded. "Please call Jessica. Call the hotels. Call the airlines. It's been 3 days. Some of it has to be refundable. Please stop this." I stepped closer, my voice breaking. That money was my house down payment. It was my security, my future, my independence. "If you take all of it, I'll have nothing left. Nothing." My mother's expression didn't soften even slightly. She didn't look guilty or conflicted or even remotely sympathetic. She just looked at me like I was a whining child having a tantrum about not getting a toy. She turned to the ornate mirror and calmly pulled out her $200 lipstick to reapply it, watching her own reflection instead of acknowledging my pain. "Don't be so dramatic, Sarah," she said coolly, her eyes focused on her own lips. "You're 31 years old and you make excellent money. You'll rebuild your savings. It might take a few years, but you're young and successful. But what about right now?" I whispered. "What about my plans? I was going to buy property this year. I was going to start building real wealth." She snapped the lipstick closed and finally turned to look directly at me. Her eyes were as cold and hard as the marble countertops. "Sarah, your sister is only going to have one honeymoon in her entire life. One chance to start her marriage with pure joy and romance. Your career will give you many, many chances to make money. This is about priorities and perspective." "What about my priorities?" I whispered. She stepped toward me and actually reached out to straighten my jacket collar, a gesture that was so condescending and maternal it made my skin crawl. "Your priority is supporting your family," she said softly, like she was explaining something obvious to a slow child. "You're the successful one, the strong one. You're the one with the big job and the bright future ahead of you. Sometimes the capable person has to make sacrifices so the fragile person can flourish." She gave my collar a final dismissive pat. "Jessica needed this, Sarah, and you were in a position to provide it. That's what families do for each other. That's what love looks like." She walked past me toward the door, then paused with her hand on the handle. "Be grateful you could give your sister such a beautiful gift. Not everyone gets the chance to create that kind of happiness for someone they love." She walked out, leaving me standing alone in that bathroom, staring at my own reflection in the mirror. She was right about one thing. I was strong, but I was done being strong for people who saw me as nothing more than a resource to be exploited and drained. I smoothed my jacket, walked back to the table and sat down with a calm smile. I picked up my champagne glass and toasted them both. "To Jessica," I said. "May she enjoy every single dollar." They didn't even notice the ice in my voice. They were already planning their trip to visit her in Tuscany. 3 weeks passed. I spent them doing something my family never expected me to do. Research. Deep, methodical, professional research using every skill I'd learned as a financial analyst. I was sitting in my apartment, surrounded by laptops, financial documents, and legal pads covered in calculations. I had spent the week since that humiliating dinner conducting what I privately called forensic family accounting. I wanted to understand the complete financial architecture of my parents' life. Every asset, every liability, every cash flow stream. What I discovered was both shocking and perfectly logical. My parents, despite their affluent appearance and expensive lifestyle, were living in a carefully constructed house of cards. Their beautiful house was mortgaged to 95% of its value. Their luxury cars were leased, not owned. Their country club memberships, their designer clothes, their elegant furniture, it was all financed through a complex web of credit lines and carefully managed debt. They looked wealthy, but they were actually leveraged to the breaking point. One missed payment, one unexpected expense, one economic hiccup could bring their entire lifestyle crashing down. But there was one asset that was completely paid off, growing steadily, and representing their entire retirement security. One account that had been building wealth consistently for 6 years. An account I had been secretly funding without them ever acknowledging it. The memory came flooding back. 6 years ago, when I was 25 and had just gotten my first major promotion to senior analyst, my father had one of his characteristic worried conversations with me. "Sarah, sweetheart," he'd said during a Sunday family dinner, "we're really concerned about retirement planning. The financial crisis hurt our 401k badly, and we're starting to realize we're behind where we should be for our age. We need to accelerate our savings, but we're just not sophisticated enough to know how to invest properly." I was making $180,000 a year at that point, and feeling generous toward my family. I wanted to help them secure their golden years. Without thinking twice, I set up an automatic transfer of $20,500 every month into what they called their Retirement Acceleration Fund. For 72 straight months, 6 full years, I had been their retirement plan. $2,500 times 72 months equals $180,000 in principal contributions. With compound growth in their diversified portfolio, the account now held approximately $247,000. Just like with the savings account they'd just emptied, over the years they had somehow forgotten where the money was actually coming from. They convinced themselves they were financial planning geniuses who had built a solid retirement portfolio through their own discipline and wisdom. They forgot that I was literally funding their entire retirement. I opened my laptop and logged into their retirement account. They'd given me access years ago when they wanted me to help monitor the investments. Current balance, $247,358. I stared at that number for a long time. They had stolen $380,000 from me to fund Jessica's vacation. I had been unknowingly funding their retirement to the tune of nearly $250,000. The math was starting to make sense in a cold, brutal way. I picked up my phone and called Schwab, where their retirement account was held. "Yes," I said to the customer service representative. "I need to inquire about withdrawal procedures for an account where I'm listed as the primary contributor and beneficiary." The conversation took 30 minutes, but the conclusion was simple. Yes, I was authorized to make withdrawals. Yes, I could liquidate the entire account. Yes, they could process the transfer immediately to my personal account at a different institution. "Are you sure you want to proceed with a full withdrawal?" the representative asked. "This will trigger significant tax implications for the account holders." "I'm sure," I said. Within 6 hours, $247,358 was sitting in my new personal account at Bank of America. Their retirement fund was completely empty. 6 years of what they thought was their own brilliant saving had just vanished. I didn't call them. I just waited. The call came 4 days later. I was in my office, analyzing quarterly reports for a tech startup's IPO, when my phone rang. Mom. Her voice wasn't celebratory this time. "Sarah," she said, and her voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "Something very strange has happened with Dad's retirement account. The bank called this morning about some kind of unusual activity." "Oh," I said, not looking up from my computer screen. "They said the account balance is 0, she continued, her voice rising with each word. 0, Sarah. That can't possibly be right. We have almost $250,000 in that account. It has to be some kind of computer error or security breach." I set down my pen and leaned back in my ergonomic chair, looking out at the San Francisco skyline. "It's not an error, Mom." There was a long, dead silence on the other end of the line. "What do you mean it's not an error?" she whispered. "I mean I withdrew the money," I said calmly. "All of it." I heard a sharp intake of breath that sounded like someone had been punched. "You withdrew what money?" she demanded, her voice climbing toward hysteria. "What are you possibly talking about, Sarah? That's our retirement money. Our future security." The ignorance was absolutely staggering. She had completely erased 6 years of my contributions from her memory, just like she'd done with the savings account. "No, Mom," I said, and my voice was as clear and sharp as surgical steel. "It's not your retirement money. It's my money. The $2,500 I've transferred to you every single month for the last 6 years. The $180,000 in principal plus growth that I've been contributing while you spent your own salaries on luxury cars and country club fees." I could hear her breathing, shallow and panicked. "The money that adds up to $180,000 in contributions," I continued, "plus 6 years of compound growth, totaling $247,358. The money that I've been depositing while you convinced yourselves you were investment geniuses." "Sarah," she whispered, and her voice was no longer confused. It was terrified. "I had to withdraw it," I said cheerfully. "I needed the funds to start rebuilding my savings account. You know, the one you emptied to pay for Jessica's European vacation? I figured it was time to reallocate some family assets." She was completely silent. She was processing the realization that her entire retirement security had just evaporated. "I have to go, Mom," I continued. "I have a meeting with a financial advisor about investment strategies. It's amazing how much money you can accumulate when you're not funding other people's dreams. Goodbye." I hung up and immediately turned off my phone. I wanted to let her sit alone with the full impact of what had just happened. For the rest of that day, my phone stayed off. When I finally turned it back on that evening, there were 31 missed calls, 23 voicemails, and 58 text messages. The progression was a masterclass in the stages of grief. First came confusion. "Sarah, call us immediately. There's been some kind of mistake with the account." Then denial. "The bank is wrong. You couldn't have accessed that account. Call us back right now." Then anger. "What you've done is theft. We're calling our lawyer. This is illegal." Then bargaining. "Sarah, please. We can work this out. Let's meet and discuss this rationally." Finally, desperation. "Please call us back. That was our retirement. We have nothing else saved. We need that money to survive." I read through every message methodically, like I was analyzing a financial report. Then I deleted them all and went to bed. 2 days later, I decided it was time for a drive. I wanted to see how my parents were handling their new financial reality. I drove to Palo Alto and parked across the street from their house, just out of sight behind a neighbor's hedge. I didn't have to wait long to see the impact of their collapsed retirement fund. At exactly 9 a.m., a black BMW sedan pulled into their circular driveway. A man in an expensive suit got out, walked to their front door, and rang the bell. I watched through binoculars as my father answered, still in his bathrobe at 9 in the morning. Something I'd never seen in my entire life. The conversation lasted about 5 minutes. The man handed my father a thick manila envelope and walked back to his car. My father stood in the doorway, opened the envelope, and I watched his entire body crumple as he read whatever was inside. It was a notice from their mortgage company. Without their retirement account as collateral, and with their marginal monthly income, they had been flagged for financial review. Their mortgage was being called for immediate restructuring, which meant either a massive increase in monthly payments or potential foreclosure proceedings. I watched my father slide down the doorframe until he was sitting on the stone steps of their beautiful house, still in his bathrobe, holding the papers with shaking hands. I started my car and drove home. That evening, my mother called. Her voice was completely different, broken, desperate, stripped of all its previous arrogance. "Sarah," she said, and I could hear that she'd been crying. "We received a notice from the bank today. They're restructuring our mortgage because our debt-to-income ratio has changed. Without the retirement account, we don't qualify for our current terms." "That sounds concerning," I said calmly. "We're going to lose the house," she whispered. 30 years of payments, and we're going to lose everything. You have to help us. You have to put the money back." I thought about that for a moment. "Why would I do that?" "Because we're your family," she cried. "Because you love us. We made a mistake with your savings account. We're sorry. We'll find a way to pay you back somehow. Just please don't let us lose our home." I was quiet for a long time, letting her desperation fill the silence. "Here's what's going to happen, Mom," I finally said. "You're going to call Jessica in Italy and tell her to come home immediately. You're going to explain that her honeymoon was funded by stolen money and that she needs to return whatever she can." "We can't do that," she protested. "She's in the middle of her dream trip. It would destroy her happiness." "Then you're going to lose your house," I said simply, "because I'm not giving you back money that you can use to subsidize her vacation while you lose your home. Choose what matters more, her happiness or your house." I hung up. The next morning I woke up to a text from Jessica. It was the first direct communication I'd had with her since the theft. The message was a single word: "Why?" I texted back, "Ask Mom." 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Jessica, and she was sobbing. "Sarah," she cried, "I don't understand what's happening. Mom just called and told me I have to come home. She said there's some kind of financial emergency, and that my honeymoon money came from your savings? That doesn't make sense. Why would you give us your savings and then take it back?" I sat up in bed, amazed by her complete ignorance of what had actually happened. "Jessica," I said carefully, "did Mom tell you she stole $380,000 from my personal savings account without my knowledge or permission to pay for your trip?" "Stole?" she repeated. "No. She said it was a family emergency fund. She said you had agreed to help with my honeymoon as a wedding gift." I was speechless. Even now, even in crisis, they were lying to her about what they'd done. "Jessica," I said, "they emptied my entire life savings while I was in a business meeting. I had no idea until after you were already in Paris. They committed theft, and now they're panicking because I took back retirement money that I was contributing to their account." There was a long silence. "You paid for their retirement?" she asked quietly. "I've been giving them $2,500 a month for 6 years, I said. "They never told you that either, did they?" Another silence. "Sarah," she whispered, "I had no idea. I thought they were just generous. I thought they had saved up for my honeymoon. I never would have accepted it if I'd known it was your money." For the first time in this entire disaster, someone in my family was showing a glimmer of conscience. "What do you want me to do?" she asked. "Come home," I said. "Cut the trip short and come home. Then we'll figure out how much of the money is recoverable and how much damage has been done." 2 weeks later, Jessica was back in San Francisco. The glamorous European adventure had ended abruptly in Rome when her credit card was declined at their luxury hotel. She'd had to book economy flights home using her own emergency savings, and the contrast with her first-class departure was humiliating. We met at a coffee shop in downtown San Francisco, neutral territory. She looked terrible. The radiant, glowing bride was gone, replaced by someone who looked exhausted and beaten down by reality. "I brought printouts," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "Everything I could find. Hotel receipts, restaurant bills, shopping receipts, tour bookings, everything we spent." I opened the folder and started calculating. The numbers were staggering. In 3 weeks, they had burned through $127,000, nearly $6,000 per day on hotels, meals, shopping, and experiences. "How much is recoverable?" I asked. She shook her head. "Almost nothing. The hotels don't give refunds. The tours were prepaid and non-refundable. The shopping," she gestured helplessly. "I can sell some of the designer stuff, but it'll be pennies on the dollar. So approximately $250,000 is just gone forever," I said. She nodded, tears starting to form in her eyes. "Sarah, I am so sorry. I had no idea Mom and Dad were lying to me. If I had known it was your life savings, I never would have gone. You have to believe that." I looked at my little sister. For the first time in years, she seemed like an actual human being instead of an Instagram persona. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," I said, "you're going to get a job. A real job. And you're going to help me figure out how to save Mom and Dad's house while they learn to live within their actual means." "A job?" she repeated, like I'd suggested she move to Mars. "A job," I confirmed, "because the family bank is officially closed, and everyone is about to learn what it means to work for their own money." 6 months later, I was standing in the kitchen of my new house, a beautiful modern home in Palo Alto, just 4 blocks away from where my parents used to live. I had used their retirement money plus some of my rebuilt savings to buy the house with cash. It was smaller than my parents' former mansion, but it was completely paid off and entirely mine. Through my kitchen window, I could see their new apartment complex. After losing their house to foreclosure, they'd been forced to downsize to a 2-bedroom rental unit. My father, at 63, was working part-time at Home Depot to help make ends meet. My mother had taken a job as a real estate agent at a small firm, starting over at the bottom after 20 years away from the industry. Jessica was living with them temporarily, working double shifts at a high-end restaurant while trying to rebuild her finances. The lifestyle blogging career had ended when her audience realized her glamorous life was fake. The justice was poetic. They had tried to steal my future to fund their present, and instead, they had lost their future entirely. They had gambled with my stability and lost their own. But the most satisfying part wasn't their downfall. It was my rise. I had been promoted to Director of Strategic Investments at my firm. My salary had jumped to $380,000 per year, exactly the amount they had stolen from me. I was building wealth faster than ever, and every dollar I earned was completely mine. My phone rang. It was my mother. "Sarah," she said, her voice small and tired. "I was wondering if you might be willing to have dinner with us this weekend. It's been 6 months since we've all been together." I looked out my window at their apartment complex, at the lives they'd built on the foundation of my trust and destroyed through their own greed. "I'll think about it," I said. Because sometimes, the greatest victory isn't revenge. Sometimes it's just being strong enough to build your own life while others live with the consequences of their choices. Here's what this story teaches us about family, money, and trust. The people closest to you can become your greatest financial threats if you don't protect yourself with the same vigilance you'd use with strangers. My parents didn't see me as their daughter. They saw me as their secret funding source. When I stopped funding their lifestyle, their entire house of cards collapsed. The most painful lesson is that financial abuse often comes wrapped in love and family obligation. They didn't steal from me out of malice. They stole from me because they genuinely believed my money belonged to them, and their priorities mattered more than mine. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe. Have you ever been the family ATM that everyone takes for granted? Share your story in the comments below.